Scene script. Have you ever wondered how much of you is really you? How much of your personality is shaped by this elusive concept we call ego? Diving headfirst into the realm of psychology, we encounter a fascinating player that heavily influences our thoughts, actions, and overall behavior: the ego. The ego is a key component of our personality, acting as the driver's seat of our consciousness. It's where our sense of self and identity reside. It's that little voice in our heads, the narrator of our life stories, constantly whispering who we are and what we're capable of. But the ego isn't a one-trick pony. It's a complex and multifaceted component of our psyche that can be both a formidable ally and a formidable foe. Like a double-edged sword, the ego can empower us and at the same time hold us back. On the brighter side, a significant ego can fuel our self-confidence, igniting the spark of belief in our own abilities. It's this belief that propels us forward, pushing us to chase our dreams with unrelenting determination. It gives us the courage to face challenges head-on and helps us stand tall in social situations, enabling us to assertively interact with others. However, there's also a darker side to the ego. If left unchecked, it can grow into a monstrous entity that overshadows our true selves. This inflated ego can lead to arrogance, excessive pride, and a lack of humility. It can blind us, causing us to underestimate others and unwittingly stumble into conflicts. The ego, in its most destructive form, can make us prioritize self-interests above all else, leading to selfish decisions and egocentric actions. So the ego is a bit of a paradox. When harnessed properly, it can be an incredible source of motivation and self-assuredness. But when it spirals out of control, it can lead to destructive behavior and strained relationships. But how exactly does having a large ego benefit us, and when does it start becoming a liability? Let's delve deeper. Imagine standing on a stage, thousands of eyes on you. It's your ego that tells you you can do this. Our ego, that little voice inside us, is the heart of our self-assurance. It's the part of us that puffs out our chest and says, I can do this. It's the driving force that fuels our self-confidence, pushing us to believe in our own abilities. When we're faced with a challenge, it's the ego that steps up, ready to tackle whatever comes our way. Picture it, you're standing at the base of a mountain, the peak obscured by clouds. It's daunting, isn't it? But then, there's a flicker of determination, a spark of resolve. That's the ego whispering in your ear, you've got this. You can conquer this mountain, and so you begin your ascent, fueled by the ego's unyielding determination. The ego isn't just about determination though, it's also about assertiveness, about standing your ground and making your voice heard. Imagine being in a crowded room, everyone talking over each other. It's your ego that rises above the cacophony, ensuring your voice isn't drowned out. It's the ego that helps you navigate social situations with confidence, enabling you to interact assertively and effectively. This sense of self, the ego, it's like a compass guiding us through life's twists and turns. It helps us set goals, dream big, and strive for success. It's the ego that paints a vision of what we can become, a vision that we work tirelessly to bring to life. But it's not just about the big things, the ego also enables us to take pride in our achievements, no matter how small. It's the voice that says, well done, you did great, when we've accomplished something. It's our personal cheerleader, celebrating our victories and picking us up when we stumble. So, a strong ego can be quite the superhero, right? But what happens when the superhero turns into a villain? Imagine being at a party, and there's that one person who just can't stop talking about themselves. That's when the ego becomes overbearing. The ego is a critical part of our personality, shaping our sense of identity and self-esteem. But like a balloon overfilled with air, an ego that becomes too large can take on an overbearing nature. This can manifest in several ways, including arrogance, excessive pride, and a lack of humility. Arrogance is a clear sign of an overbearing ego. It's when we start to believe that we're superior to others, disregarding their ideas and opinions. We start to think that we always know best, that our way is the only way. This can create a wall between us and others, making it difficult to form meaningful connections or collaborate effectively. Excessive pride, another facet of an overbearing ego, can blind us to our faults and shortcomings. We become so enamored with our achievements and abilities that we fail to acknowledge areas where we could improve. This can hinder personal growth and development, as we become resistant to constructive criticism and feedback. A lack of humility is a further indication of an overbearing ego. We forget to appreciate the contributions of others and start to believe that we alone are responsible for our success. We may even start to look down on those we perceive as less accomplished, failing to recognize that everyone has their unique journeys and strengths. An inflated ego can lead to conflicts and selfish decisions. We may underestimate others, overstep boundaries, and disregard the feelings and needs of those around us in pursuit of our own interests. This can strain relationships and lead to a toxic environment, whether at work, home, or in social settings. Clearly, a large ego is not always a good thing, but is there a way to strike a balance? The key lies in self-awareness and empathy, in recognizing the value of others, and in understanding that our worth is not diminished by the success of others. It's about being confident, yet grounded, ambitious, yet considerate. But that's a topic for our next scene. Stay tuned. Balance, they say, is the key to everything, but how does one balance their ego? Imagine a seesaw. On one side there's self-assuredness and determination, the positive aspects of our ego that drive us to reach for the stars. On the other side there's arrogance and excessive pride, the negative traits that can lead us down a path of conflict and misunderstanding. The challenge is to keep this seesaw level, to strike a balance that allows us to harness the power of our ego without letting it control us. Self-awareness is our first tool in managing our ego. By understanding our emotions, motivations, and reactions, we can assess when our ego is serving us and when it's leading us astray. It's about knowing the difference between healthy self-esteem and harmful arrogance, between assertiveness and aggression. It's about recognizing when our ego is pushing us to strive and when it's just pushing others away. Humility is our second tool. It's the antidote to an inflated ego, the voice that reminds us that we're not the center of the universe. It keeps us grounded, teaches us to value others, and helps us accept that we don't always have to be right or in control. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of ourselves, but thinking of ourselves less. It's about celebrating our achievements without belittling others, about being confident without being condescending. Empathy is our third tool. It's the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. It's the bridge that connects us to people, the glue that holds relationships together. When our ego tries to isolate us, empathy brings us back. It reminds us that we're part of a community, that our actions affect others, and that we can learn from those around us. These tools don't suppress our ego. They help us guide it, shape it, use it to our advantage. They allow us to be confident yet considerate, ambitious yet humble, assertive yet understanding. So, while our ego is an integral part of us, it's important to keep it in check. So, we've taken a deep dive into the concept of ego, its pros and cons, and how to manage it. It's a fascinating journey, isn't it? Let's do a quick recap of what we've learned today. We started by unraveling the ego. We learned that it's the part of our personality that pertains to our sense of self, our identity, and self-esteem. It's that little voice in our heads that constantly reminds us of who we are and our place in the world. Then, we explored the empowering side of the ego. It's a force that can drive us to achieve our goals with determination, courage, and confidence. It's the fuel that propels us to take on challenges head-on, to stand tall in social situations, and to assertively interact with others. A strong ego can indeed be a positive trait, a real asset when used wisely. However, we also delved into the overbearing side of the ego. It's the dark side that can lead to arrogance, excessive pride, and a lack of humility. It's when we underestimate others and get embroiled in unnecessary conflicts. It's when we make decisions based on self-interest and act egocentrically. A large ego, when not managed properly, can indeed be a liability. And finally, we talked about striking the balance. It's about harnessing the positive aspects of our ego, while keeping the negative traits in check. It's about using our ego as a tool to boost our self-confidence and determination, but not letting it drive us to arrogance or selfishness. It's about being self-assured, but not self-centered. So what's the takeaway from all of this? It's simple. Your ego can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. It all depends on how you choose to manage it. And as with everything in life, balance is key. Remember, your ego is a part of you, but it doesn't define you. It's a tool that you can use to your advantage if you know how to manage it well.